Hey, good afternoon and welcome everybody to our webinar this afternoon on updates to Michigan's drinking water state revolving fund scoring criteria. Glad to have you with us today. I did have a little poll up because I was just curious on how many people might have joined us for yesterday's listening session on the clean water drinking SRF, and looks like about half of you were on that one. So to those of you, welcome back. And to those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. Glad you're here with us. My name is Jim Ostrowski, and I work in the Environmental Support Division here at EGLE. I'm just going to go through a couple housekeeping guidelines before I turn it over to Dan. He's going to do a quick presentation, and then we want to hear from you, hear your comments and any questions you might have. So just as a reminder, the lines are all muted today until we get to the Q&A part and the comment part, and then I'll explain how to unmute. We're also recording this webinar like we do with all of our webinars, and we'll be putting it up on YouTube by the end of the week. So anybody who registered will get a link to it. Even if you missed it, you'll get a copy of this. Keep an eye on the chat because we'll probably be dropping a couple links into the chat for you this afternoon. And with that, that's all I got. So I'm going to turn it over to Dan. So Dan, you can go ahead and share your screen and take it away.
Okay, can you see that, Jim?
Yep, looks good.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thanks. I'm Dan Beauchamp. I'm the section manager for the Water Infrastructure Funding and Financing section. So our section administers both the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund and also the Clean Water State Revolving Fund and other infrastructure grant programs. So, brief agenda for today. So, for those of you that were on the clean water scoring criteria listening session yesterday, a lot of the slides are the same. So, for an agenda for today, we're going to briefly go over why we are here. And then I'll provide an overview of the existing drinking water state revolving fund scoring criteria. And then we'll open it up for suggestions, comments, questions on amending the drinking water state revolving fund scoring criteria, beginning with fiscal year 27 projects. So why we're here. Before we get into this, I just want to just make sure everyone understands why we're not here. We're not here to talk about fiscal year 26. So those projects are ones that project planning documents were submitted by June 1st of this year, and we're currently undergoing our drinking water and environmental health division is currently scoring those projects for development of the intended use plan. So this meeting is not to talk about fiscal year 26 projects, not to talk about the 26 project priority list or anything like that. It's to talk about the scoring criteria updates that will likely happen for fiscal year 27 projects. So let's get into why we're here. So the SRF legislation was changed in 2022 to allow for changes to the scoring criteria and also the disadvantaged definition, no more than every 3 years. So prior to this, the scoring criteria was contained in administrative rule or law, depending on if we're talking about the drinking water program or the clean water or wastewater program. When it was contained in law, we didn't have the ability to change that scoring criteria based on, priorities from, changing priorities of EGLE, changing priorities from, water supplies, that sort of stuff. So now we have the ability to change the scoring criteria and make updates as we learn additional information and priorities change no more than every 3 years. So this scoring criteria that we're currently operating under was developed in 2023 and really went through a public meeting and hearing process and put into place starting with fiscal year 24 SRF loans. The scoring criteria that was created through this process has been in place for fiscal year 24 loans, fiscal year 25 loans. Those are the projects that are closing this year, and then fiscal year 26. So again, those projects are those that just submitted their project planning documents and are currently being scored. So all those projects will be scored under the existing scoring criteria, not any changes. So I just want to make that clear. So EGLE right now is trying to involve stakeholders in this SRF scoring process really early. We're trying to get suggestions, comments on the existing scoring criteria so we can take those suggestions and comments and consider those and incorporate those into development of any updates to the new scoring criteria. So trying to get suggestions and comments early on so we can, include those in the scoring updates before a draft scoring criteria comes out. So next, I'll get talk a little bit here about the DWS scoring criteria. So Part 54 requires scoring criteria address the following categories. So it includes these hierarchy categories that we must address as part of the scoring criteria. So for drinking water, there's 5 of them. The first one is drinking water regulatory compliance. The second is public health. The third is drinking water quality. The fourth is improving infrastructure. And then the final one is affordability or overburdened systems. So EGLE is required to award at least 20% of the total allowable points to overburdened and significantly overburdened communities. So what that means is those first 4 categories where we can set up the scoring criteria and the number of points in any way that the department sees fit in developing those scoring criteria and assigning points on those based on or we can change that every 3 years. So next, we'll go through the existing drinking water scoring criteria. So again, this was in effect for 24, 25, and 26. The first category here that we'll talk about is drinking water regulatory compliance. So here, 15 points are awarded for a project that includes upgrades to improve or maintain compliance with existing drinking water standards, treatment techniques, or system capacity requirements. The next scoring criteria is 5 points are awarded for water system regionalization efforts among multiple public water supplies to support improved technical, managerial, and financial capacity. The next criteria is consolidation. So here points are awarded for each community water supply that they're consolidating with. So 5 points are awarded for each community water supply, and then 3 points are awarded for other public water supplies, up to a maximum of 10 points in this category. The next criteria is 5 points are awarded for projects that address an enforcement order, such as an administrative consent order, an administrative compliance agreement, or any kind of other department order to correct deficiencies of the drinking water supply. So 5 points is awarded there. And then finally, 5 points is awarded for projects that include source water protection efforts. So the maximum points for this category is 25. So you can see here, based on the sub criteria, you could, if the project could qualified for all of those, you could exceed the total maximum points for that category. So if you had a project that exceeded that, we would cap that at the maximum points awarded for that given category. Oops. So, oh, I didn't go into the next one. So the next one is public health protection. 15 points is awarded if the project proposes lead service line replacements. 20 points is awarded if the project is aimed at addressing acute violations of MCLs or treatment techniques. 10 points is awarded if the project is aimed at addressing non-acute violations of standards. And then 5 points is awarded for those systems that have a history of proactive public health protection. So no health-based violations identified. So again, the maximum points for this category would be 20 points. The next category is drinking water standards. Here, 5 points is awarded for a project that proposes looping to eliminate dead-end water mains. Additional 5 points is awarded for projects that propose to install storage tank mixing to improve water quality. 5 points is awarded for projects that propose to change to a more protective or higher quality source water. Next, 10 points is awarded for those supplies that have an active source water protection program or wellhead protection plan. And then finally, 5 points is awarded if the project proposes treatment upgrades to address water quality, such as, aesthetic things. So here, the maximum points for the drinking water and drinking water quality standards category is 15 points. Next, we'll move over to the improving infrastructure category. If the project is a result of an asset management plan, so contained in, say, a capital improvement plan or a reliability study, 10 points is awarded for that. Additionally, under the improving infrastructure category, 5 points is awarded if the project includes infrastructure assets from multiple systems. Additionally, 5 points is awarded for projects that include multiple asset classes or financing sources. So such that like you're seeking DWSRF funding and also CWSRF funding for a portion of the project, or you're seeking funding from USDA rural development for a portion of the drinking water project. Then you would be awarded those points. So here, the maximum points for this category, the improving infrastructure category, is 15. And then finally, the affordability category. 20 points is awarded for those systems that meet the overburden definition. So if your system is designated as an overburden system, then you would be awarded 20 points. Additionally, if your system was designated as a significantly overburdened system, then your system would receive 25 points. So the maximum points for this category is 25. So here's just a snapshot of how the points, the maximum points for each category and the total points that a project can be awarded. So you can see here in the drinking water regulatory compliance category, that's 25 points. Public health protection, 20 points. Drinking water standards, 15. Improving infrastructure, 15. And then the affordability or overburdened is 25 points. So the maximum points a project can receive is 100 points under the existing scoring criteria. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jim, and we could start taking comments and questions.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation there, Dan. We will open it up right now for questions and comments that you all might have. Before I do that, I want to just introduce Lance Wood. So Lance is listening in as well from EGLE. So Lance, can you say hi?
Yes, hello everyone. So my name is Lance Wood and I'm an SRF project manager and I work out of the Kalamazoo district office with EGLE.
All right, thanks Lance. Just want to let everybody know that Lance is listening in as well. Just so you know, we've got about 54 people on the line, so not a huge group, but looking forward to hearing from you all. We did put a couple things in the chat, including a link to the website and also a couple different websites that Dan had mentioned in his presentation. So if you got a comment for us today, Please go ahead and click the raise hand icon in your Zoom toolbar. And when you do that, I will call your name and let you unmute yourself. You can also type any comments or questions into the Q&A box, and we'll read those off and get to those as well. If you don't feel comfortable talking to us today on the line or typing anything in, you can always send us a written comment via email, and we put the email address on the screen there. Also ask that maybe Natalie drop it into the chat so it stays in there. It's egle-wiffs@michigan.gov. So, Dan, I do not have anybody in the queue with questions in our Q&A box, nor does anybody have their hand raised. Okay, so if anybody has a question or a comment, please let us know. We did have somebody ask what's changing. And so maybe briefly, if you could just high level.
Yeah. So right now we're just starting the process of development of the draft scoring criteria, right? So what we wanted to do is open this up for recommendations recommendations from communities, consultants, any other stakeholders that wanted to comment, to try to provide that opportunity early to make suggestions before we develop the draft scoring criteria. You know, a lot of times I think we hear that you know, we draft something and then have a public hearing and don't give ample time to provide suggestions. So we're trying to be you know, transparent here and work with all the stakeholders to try to get suggestions in early, so we have those suggestions as we're developing our draft criteria. Again, and I'll get into this later, there's going to be ample time once we develop draft criteria, and I'll provide a timeline for that after our comments, but we'll provide ample time for additional stakeholder involvement and comments and that sort of stuff. So.
All right, Dan, we got a couple questions in here and some comments, so good. Jacqueline's actually got her hand raised, so Jacqueline, I'll let you go ahead and unmute yourself and you can go ahead and come on. Go ahead. Jacqueline, looks like you're unmuted, so if you have a comment, go right ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you now. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. I did have some comments that I made last year, and I just would like to kind of reiterate the comments I sent to Lance Wood and our district engineer in Kalamazoo. So my comments were regarding the drinking water regulatory compliance, source water protection efforts. So for the village of Marcellus, we do have a source water protection efforts. We have an active wellhead protection plan, and we are actively, you know, working on that all the time. So I think there seems to be two different things there: source water protection, and then we got points for one, but not the other. So, and I thought we should have one. To the public health. So I suggested that the state consider offering more points for having a history of proactive public health protection with no violations, because that would be our position. So to get more points because you have violations, and I've even heard people make comments about, oh, if you had some violations, you get those points. And of course, we don't want that. That's a bad thing. So I would suggest that more points for having a good history. In addition to that, some of the, I believe that our project that we have submitted a couple of times does address potential violations. We have high arsenic levels before filtering, and we need to replace those filters. So I would say that we should get points for that, for the reasons listed. And I also asked for a discussion on treatment upgrades and why we should not get 5 points in that category. And I know you would have to look at our submittal to see why, but I was looking for an additional 20 points. My response to that was, we agree and we would talk to the state, and I don't know if that happened, that probably for being proactive with public health and not having violations, maybe you should get those points, but I don't know if you guys are considering any of that.
So I guess this webinar is really focused on the changes that would be occurring to fiscal year 27 projects, right? The scoring criteria for fiscal year
That's what
27
and I'm
projects.
asking you to make those changes. Is it too late for that?
So we're just developing. So again, the scoring criteria that was developed in 2023 that went into effect for fiscal year 24, 25, and 26 projects has been set. The criteria, scoring criteria has been set. So right now, this listening session is to take recommendations. So like what your suggestions,
Yes, sir.
we will definitely take those into account as we're developing the scoring criteria changes for fiscal year 27.
And that's what I'm looking for you to do. Yes.
Okay.
Can I get an email address where I could send my suggestions in writing?
It's right on the website right now. And then it's also contained in our, not the website, the
Oh, I see it.
screen. And then it's also in the chat.
All righty, I got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're
And then
welcome.
any questions as it relates to fiscal year 26 scores, please work with the district engineer. Once Drinking Water and Environmental Health Division finish the scoring for fiscal year 26 projects, we will send out draft scores to communities to take a look at those. And if you don't agree with those draft scores, please work with the district engineer on that.
Sure. So just so you know, with the current scoring in mind, we did not submit this
Okay.
last round because
Okay.
we didn't feel like we tried twice and we got the same points. So we didn't feel like our project, was going, and I hate to increase the cost of the project just to get points, right? Adding
Understand.
things,
Yes.
adding chemicals to people's water if you don't need to is just not good.
Understand. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for your comments, Jacqueline. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Okay, looking at our Q&A box here, we've got a couple of them. This person's asking if you to clarify, when is the next drinking water state revolving fund selection?
The selection is in the projects. So we're
Assuming.
currently in the process of scoring the fiscal year 26 projects. Once Drinking Water gets those back, again, we will send out draft scores to all the applicants and give them a chance to review those draft scores. And then we will, from that point, we will start developing the intended use plan and the project priority list.
All right, thanks. Here's a comment from Ryan. Consider giving higher points to projects that include both drinking water and sanitary sewer projects in the same right-of-way space to promote the dig once rationale. This
Okay.
may include additional preference points on the clean water SRF side.
Understand.
All right.
Thanks for the comment, Brian.
Yeah, thanks for those comments. Another person here is asking, can you speak about the current tie-breaking criteria?
So the current tie-breaking criteria is lowest cost per capita. So to be completely transparent, that is something that we're looking at to develop new tiebreaker for fiscal year 27. So we are looking to potentially change that too.
What is the rationale for lowest cost per capita?
So the rationale is it's I guess I don't know if it's most cost effective or that was ultimately what was decided on by our partners in Drinking Water Environmental Health Division and Water Resource Division as the tiebreaker. We are looking to change that as part of this, I think, though.
All right, thanks. Okay, we do have a hand raised. Brian, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jim. So as a question regarding the scoring buckets, I know that we've had some discussions in past years where we've got either overburdened or significantly overburdened communities who have applied, but then back out if the grant portion is not large enough, and it creates a big, I think, scoring mess for both EGLE and an administrative issue, and then concerns among communities who maybe didn't make the original cut, but then later make the cut because others have dropped out. It seems like it happens often enough. Has there been any consideration maybe to creating two separate pots, in essence, for overburdened and significantly burdened versus others, so that we aren't having those two groups compete against each other for the same dollars?
Not that I'm aware of. I think, according to the SRF legislation, we need to score and rank all these projects. So the existing criteria talks about, or requires the overburdened, points to be awarded. So I don't think that currently there's an option to separate out separate PPLs for overburdened communities and non-overburdened communities. The one thing I will say, though, Brian, to address your comments is we've tried to, especially as we're moving into fiscal year 26, right? As you're well aware, and I think probably a lot of people here are well aware, Michigan was allocating a large amounts of American Rescue Plan dollars through our intended use plan. So the amount of grant funding for those significantly overburdened communities and overburdened communities was large, right?
Correct.
So while we do have likely we do have bill funding, the bipartisan infrastructure law funding that does have, higher amounts of principal forgiveness. We don't intend for in fiscal year 26 to see those amounts of, like 100% grants and that sort of stuff. So what we have done is reached out to a lot of these communities and, had discussions early on. Do you intend to move forward if the project, doesn't get, because we don't really have much in the way of grants with the exception of some, lead and infrastructure grant, state lead and infrastructure grant dollars that we're carrying over from this from fiscal year 25. Sorry. So we've had a lot of those conversations, and those communities that said no, that they don't intend to move forward without, a large amounts of grant funding. We've had discussions with them and taken them off the list in some of those situations. So our hope is to address some of that earlier, because you're 100% right, and it is a nightmare to try to shuffle the list and these projects that aren't funding, and all of a sudden some higher dollar projects drop out. And I think we've seen that a lot on the clean water side last year. And then those projects that were in the non-fundable range get bumped up into the fundable range. So we're trying to address some of that.
Well, and I know that, I mean, everybody's very appreciative, I think, of the federal funding and the other funding to help supply the grant side of it. It's just been, I think, a lot of consternation on the award system. The points and the scoring has been created by this shoving a bunch of grant dollars through what essentially was intended to be a loan program. So I know that you guys are working hard and very diligently to try to balance that out, but I know a lot of the grief has been caused because of the Fed grant money, and was the only question is, would that be easier to deal with as a separate pot rather than try to jigger around scoring criteria to make things balance out a little bit?
Understand what you're saying. Yes, yes.
Yep. No, okay. No comment needed from me on that. Just appreciate all the work you guys are doing and understand that a lot of the issues are being created because we're forcing grant dollars through a loan program.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Brian. Okay, question here. Have you done an analysis on which subcategories have received the least amount of points through all the applications to make a determination if the subcategory is effective or not?
I have not done that yet. No.
Yeah, okay. Would a maximum loan and or principal forgiveness amount per community or project be considered to be part of the criteria in order to provide funding to more projects and communities?
That could be considered as part of, probably not the scoring criteria, but as part of the IUP development. We have the last, as you probably, those that have submitted projects the last couple years, we have limited the amount of principal forgiveness and or grant or combination of the both to a maximum dollar amount per project. So.
All right, thanks. This person's saying, I second the idea of providing more priorities points to joint CWSRF and DWSRF projects. This would encourage more efficient, cost-effective use of public dollars.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else have a comment or a question? I've gotten to all of them in our queue here. Give it a sec. Okay. All right, just want to remind everybody about the links that are in the chat and also the email address. If for some reason you want to add more details to anything you said today, or if you didn't say anything today and you want to provide information, you can send an email to eagle-wiffs@michigan.gov. All right, Dan, I guess you can close her out.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now next I just kind of want to talk about the remaining timeline for these SRF scoring criteria updates. So, from this point on, we're going to take all these suggestions that people provided today and any suggestions that people provide by email. And our intent is to now start working on, developing updates to the drinking water SRF scoring criteria. So once we, so our thought is we probably by the end of August, we will have a draft release of the proposed SRF scoring criteria. And that will be posted on Eagle's SRF website that I think Natalie put in the chat. We will continue to take public comment from that point. Additionally, from there, we plan to hold a public hearing sometime in September. The date has not yet been set there. It's really dependent on when we get the draft criteria released. And then we'll have a public hearing that will be held to take official public comment on record for the draft criteria. And again, that will be followed by an additional period of receiving public comment. And then finally, in October, we plan to release the new SRF scoring criteria for both clean water and drinking water. And that will be finalized and posted to our website and prior to fiscal year intent to apply deadline. So that deadline is November 1st of this year. So the thought process there is that the scoring criteria will be finalized, prior to that intent to apply deadline. So as those ITA meetings happen, we can talk it over regarding what you're proposing, how likely that's, how the score, how your project, is addressing some of these scores and that sort of stuff, and give ample time for the communities and consultants to ultimately develop their project planning document that would be due to be submitted by June 1st of the following year. So trying to give everyone enough time so that they can, use our scoring criteria and then determine if the project that they're proposing will likely score well, and try to make informed decisions on if they intend to apply for DWSRF funding for fiscal year 27. So then finally, I think we've talked about this enough, but public comment, is very welcomed, and we would like people to provide recommendations as soon as possible so we can incorporate those into the draft scoring criteria. However, we will be taking public comment, throughout this whole process until until the final SRF. So yeah, so if you could submit any comments, recommendations, that sort of stuff to our WIFS inbox that's here, and then please include DWS scoring criteria comment as your subject line, so we can ensure that your comments are directed to myself and our team that is working on the DWSRF scoring criteria. So with that, that's all I have today. So turn it over back to Jim.
All right, thanks, Dan. And just want to remind everybody, I just dropped in the chat the link if you want to sign up for emails, our subscription list. Click on that link there and drop your email address in there. And that's a good way for us to let you know when the public comment period comes up and any public hearings, that kind of good stuff.
And that's a good point. I would just want to clarify, if you sign up for that GovDelivery link, we intend to, once we develop our draft scoring criteria, we'll send a message out through that lets people know, and links to our website where you can go and take a look at that. So if you're not signed up for that, please do so.
Great. All right. So thanks, Dan. And we did record this webinar, and we'll be posting up on our YouTube channel by the end of the week. Look out for an email from us. We'll be following up with a link to the recording and any other necessary information that you might need. Thanks for spending some time with us today and for your thoughtful comments. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.